Was the world truly ready for a king who sculpted mountains? Did empires crumble because of a misplaced icon? And could a single, furious emperor accidentally launch a century of warfare? Let's dive into a story that's equal parts epic battles, theological storms, and surprisingly, a whole lot of rock carving. It began, predictably, with a kidnapping. Not a glamorous, swashbuckling abduction, but a brutal, calculated snatch. A Chalukya noblewoman, ripped from her family, became the unwilling wife of a Dravidian tribal chieftain named Dantidurga. He inherited his tribe, a simmering mass of warriors and farmers, in 745, a landscape already bristling with petty squabbles and ancient grudges. His father hadn't just stolen a wife, he'd stolen a destiny, laced with the restless ambition of a Chalukya bloodline. Dantidurga wasn't interested in polite diplomacy. He wasn't about to build alliances with flowery speeches and carefully negotiated treaties. He was about to conquer. He started small, swallowing his neighbors whole, each victory fueling a growing, almost terrifying confidence. Then, around 753, he set his sights on Kirtivarman II, the arrogant son of the Western Chalukya king. The poem captured it perfectly, a miniature titan overwhelming a lumbering giant. Assisted by only a few, he did subdue that tireless emperor. The battle wasn't a glorious clash of armies, but a swift, brutal assertion of dominance. Kirtivarman, a man who'd clung to the remnants of his father's kingdom, vanished into the dust, leaving Dantidurga to claim his spoils. But Dantidurga wasn't content with southern dominance. He wasn't a king who rested on his laurels. He'd heard whispers of northern invaders, of fierce tribes pushing south, and he decided to meet them head-on. And he wasn't just going to fight them, he was going to rebuild the north. Imagine a king obsessed with the grandeur of the Himalayas deciding to recreate it in the Deccan plateau. That's Dantidurga. He started pushing north across the Narmada River, a line that had always marked the boundary between his world and theirs. He wasn't facing a unified enemy, though. He was confronting Nagabata, the powerful Pratihara chief, a warlord who controlled a vast territory stretching up into the Sindh. The first encounter was a disaster. A small, hastily assembled Umayyad force was routed. Dantidurga retreated south, humiliated but not defeated. He returned not with a triumphant army, but with a chilling determination. Within a year he'd returned, seized the Pratihara capital of Mandor, and forced Nagabata to surrender. It wasn't a victory of overwhelming force, but a testament to Dantidurga's relentless tenacity. He became a temporary ruler, a collector of tribute, a shadow king, before retreating back to his southern kingdom, leaving Nagabata to stew in his defeat. And then, nothing. Dantidurga died suddenly, at the shockingly young age of 32. Like Alexander the Great, his reign was cut short, leaving behind a legacy of ambition and unfinished business. His uncle, Krishna I, stepped into the void, inheriting a kingdom riddled with debt and simmering with resentment. But Krishna wasn't interested in simply consolidating power. He had a grander vision. He wanted to be remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a builder, a sculptor of landscapes. He commissioned the construction of Kailasa, a colossal rock-cut temple at Ellora. It wasn't built with bricks and mortar, but carved directly out of a single, towering cliff face. Think of it as a temple that seemed to grow organically from the rock, a monument so immense it dwarfed everything around it. An astounding edifice, the inscriptions proclaimed, that amazed even the best of the immortals. It wasn't just a temple, it was a statement. Krishna wanted to emulate the gods of the north, the mythical rulers who had shaped the Himalayas. He transformed the sloping, low Vindhya mountains into Himalaya in the Deccan, a deliberate mimicry of the sacred northern peaks. He wasn't just building a temple, he was building an identity, but the northern ambition didn't stop there. His son, Dhruva, continued the legacy, pushing even further north than his father. He seized Mandor for good, establishing a permanent foothold in Pratihara territory. He even ventured towards Kannauj, a strategically vital city at the crossroads of three powerful kingdoms, the Rashtrakutas, the Pratihara, and the Palas. For a century, Kannauj became a battleground, a constant pressure point between these three empires. Dhruva didn't conquer Kannauj outright, but he managed to bring the northern and southern lands together under a single banner. He crossed the Ganges, a river considered sacred, and symbolically intersected the boundaries of his kingdom with the Holy River. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, a completely different drama was unfolding. The Umayyad Caliphate, once a sprawling empire stretching from Spain to India, was crumbling. The Caliph Umar II, a man obsessed with returning to the original teachings of Muhammad, had implemented a radical reform, eliminating the head tax levied on non-Arab Muslims. It was a noble, idealistic gesture, but it backfired spectacularly. Suddenly, non-Arab Muslims who had been paying the tax for generations were freed from the obligation, leading to a mass conversion and a devastating collapse of the empire's revenue. The result? A rebellion led by the Khorasan tribes, backed by Kai Lian, the newly crowned Khagan of the rebuilt Eastern Khaganate. A brutal 10-year war erupted, diverting Umayyad resources and attention away from the Indian subcontinent, and then the West. The Byzantine Emperor Leo III, a man driven by religious fervor, decided to tackle the thorny issue of icons. For centuries, Christians had used icons, painted images of saints, the Virgin Mary, and Christ, as aids to prayer. But a faction of theologians argued that these images were idolatrous, that worshipping an image was the same as worshipping God himself. Leo, convinced that the people were treating icons as magical objects, launched a campaign to destroy them. It wasn't a simple matter of smashing statues. It was a theological battle, a clash of ideologies. Leo's actions sparked widespread rebellion, particularly in Italy. The Pope, Gregory II, vehemently opposed Leo's policies, issuing condemnations and declaring the destruction of icons to be heretical. The situation escalated to the point where the Pope effectively declared himself independent of the Byzantine emperor, establishing the Papal States, a tiny but significant kingdom in central Italy. The conflict wasn't just religious, it was political. The Lombard king Liutprand saw an opportunity to expand his own power and joined forces with the Pope against the emperor. The Byzantine Empire, already weakened by the conflict in Khorasan, lost control of its territories in Italy, paving the way for the rise of the Papal States. And finally, amidst this chaos, the Khazars, a Turkic people who had long dominated the steppes of Central Asia, converted to Judaism. The reasons for this sudden shift remain a mystery, but it had profound consequences for the region, reshaping the religious and political landscape of the Eurasian steppes. The Abbasids, a new dynasty, rose to power in 750, inheriting a fractured and weakened Umayyad empire. They largely ignored the turmoil in India, focusing instead on consolidating their control over the Middle East and North Africa. The Rashtrakutas, under Krishna I's vision, continued to build their kingdom, transforming the Deccan plateau into a landscape of monumental architecture and ambitious conquest. But the seeds of future conflict had been sown. The religious divisions, the political rivalries, and the shattered remnants of the Umayyad Empire were all simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the next spark to ignite. The world wasn't ready for a king who sculpted mountains. It wasn't ready for an empire built on the wreckage of others. And it certainly wasn't ready for the slow, inexorable march of history, a story filled with both breathtaking grandeur and devastating collapse. So what started with a kidnapped bride and a king's ambition ended with a fractured world, a new dynasty, and a legacy of religious conflict. Was it a story of progress or decline? Did the ambition of a single ruler ultimately shape the fate of an entire continent?